$0 to $2,500, the financial cost of adopting each child through the foster care system. I'm your host, Marcy Bursack, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to find more forever families. In fact, one for each child waiting in the foster care system. After blogging my journey adopting a pair of siblings, I realized that I knew countless people who had a desire to adopt, but believed it was too expensive. So I wrote a book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option. I wrote a book for children, Are You a Forever Family? And I started this podcast. I am so delighted that you are tuning in. In season 2, I'm dropping monthly episodes to teach you how to adopt those U.S. children who are waiting for you in the foster care system. You might also enjoy the personal stories of adoptive parents and adopted children that I featured in season 1. Now, whether right now feels like the right time, the process feels overwhelming, or someone quickly comes to mind to share this with, I am here for you. I am America's foster care adoption mentor, and I'm eager to help you fulfill a child's dream of having their forever family. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, you're going to learn how to share your family's foster care adoption story. I'm joined today by adoptive dad, Ansel Lee. Hi, Ansel.
Hey, Marcy, how are you?
So excited to be able to expand upon our prior conversations and all of the beautiful things you're doing online. Ansel and I, and on the brink of Mother's Day weekend, he wrote a post about his family's foster care adoption story. And I had several different friends that messaged me and sent me a link and wanted to make sure that I got to read his heartfelt post. And I was awestruck, and I noticed, and Ansel was just updating me on the numbers, his post has received almost 100,000 interactions and almost 8 million views. And to me, it was very apparent that Ansel had unlocked this simple yet powerful way to invite others to consider adopting through foster care. So I'm excited for him to be able to share more about his family's story. And so, Ansel, before we get started kind of on how to translate your foster care adoption story into really a social media post, let's start off by helping listeners kind of hear a snapshot of your family. So you're married, you have a total of 6 children. So how old are your children today?
And again, thank you, Marcy, for having me on here. And I really appreciate you asking me this question before we got on here, because I struggle with all the kids and how old they are and their birthdays. So small thing, big deal, by the way, to my children. I know their birthdays. I just don't remember the years they were born. Anyway, that's just my brain problem. No, I actually have with Natalie, we have 5 daughters and 1 son. And the oldest being Amber, she's 36. And then Kelsey, who's 30, and she's a school teacher. Amber is an artist, by the way. She actually makes jewelry for porcelain jewelry for Magnolia Market. If you're familiar with the Joanna Gaines and their Magnolia Market down in Waco, Texas.
How cool!
As well as she is a ceramicist. Allison is 28. She is a hairstylist, by the way. This is probably more information you wanted to know.
I think it really helps paint a picture. Our listeners are like, now I know who your neighbors are. This is great. Now you feel very, very local. It's great.
Well, Ansel 4 is a finance guy. He actually works with me inside our firm. Kendra, recently married and as actually just graduating from Arkansas State. Actually, her husband Bennett is in the national track finals up in Oregon.
Wow!
At the end of this week. By the way, he's a steeplechase guy.
Wow!
And then and very, very proud of him. Although this is not about him, but Little plug for Bennett. And and then Natalie, our 17-year-old.
So amazing.
So
It's
that.
interesting
Oh,
because,
by the way,
yeah.
I have three grandsons who
Oh,
are fabulous. Um, Jason is 4, um, Max, who's almost 2, and then Peter, who is 4, no, 6, almost 6 months old. So we got 3 grandsons. So which is just wonderful, by the way.
the love you can give. Yeah, my mom just took care of my kids and got to do all that beautiful grandparenting, like special things, which is absolutely wonderful. And it's interesting because one of the things that I think is fun about your story and some of my prior podcast guests, you'll notice, listeners, that Ansel has a wide range of ages of kids. And so you and your wife, you had what, 5 biological children, right?
That's correct.
And then, so you really, you probably thought you were finished expanding your family size before you ever thought about adoption. So, what made you open to having a 6th child through adoption?
It was not really ever a consideration, and I kind of said that in that post is that I'm like, hey, matter of fact, there for just a glimmer, a period of time, I could see everyone, this becoming an empty nest kind of situation. And I was like, oh man, look, I just for a moment, I just had this glimmer of, I could see it. And, but and kind of backtrack, we started, providing a, what's called extended family. We became an extended family after actually attending a dinner. I sat on the board of trustees for this children's home called Soaring Wings, and we were having a dinner one night in one of the cottages. All the board members, we just were there, and I've been on the board for multiple years, and for some reason I somehow missed hearing this, but that night it hit me. Just both, actually, my wife was there, Leslie was there with me, and they talked about this extended family program. And as they talked about it, it was really for only one weekend out of the month, and then maybe 1 week at Christmas and 1 week in the summer. And so I was like, wow. Sitting in the dinner, I was thinking, oh, I bet we could do that. So we got in the car, driving home, and so I started talking to her about that. I said, I think we've got all these empty bedrooms. We could host somebody, host a child in our home as an extended family. And so we applied and got approved to be an extended family. And that's kind of how it all started. We really never thought we were going to be adopting anybody. We just kind of want to do the extended family thing. And one of the reasons we did that is I felt like in this world today, it's such a me. It's it's such a me world with our iPhones, and I wanted my children to understand that it's not about them. That that I wanted my kids to see and experience and be a part of loving on somebody that had really, whose life was really broken. And so that's kind of how we started. We just became an extended family and never thought about fostering or adoption. But that's just how we started.
Because you thought it was just like a once a month thing, and it sounds like you saw benefit for your children. So Ansel, if we were in the car with you and your wife, who brought this up, and really, what was that conversation mutually agreeable, or was there some
Yeah, I think so. I brought it up, but we both were on the same page. It was like, I think we both heard the same thing, and we both felt the same thing coming out of that, is that And I will say for years before that, for maybe 20 some odd years before that, we've been sponsoring children either, just through financially and or getting involved. When we sponsor a child, we would go have lunch or take them to Walmart and let them buy a toy, or just to go see them down at a children's home. Whenever, and that was kind of with that group of children's homes, which I actually sat on the board there too eventually, that they were distant. They were not close. This home, the Soaring Wings home, was close, within 30 minutes of us, so we could actually get there and back easily. And so the proximity really helped us do that.
Locality. Interesting. Okay, so your youngest daughter is the one you adopted through foster care. So how did you all meet?
Well, when we said we wanted to be an extended family, they just, it's interesting the words they use. I kind of go back and think about this, because they just assign you, and really, being extended family is like giving respite care. If you're familiar with respite care, that you're giving really the house parents a rest by taking these children once a month and just giving them the weekend off. And we're our place, like I even explained in the post, was really just a place to hang out. It was not it's low stress. I mean, it's all about eating pizza, watching TV, watching movies, doing fun things, just letting them, and consequently, one of my daughters was playing soccer at the time, so we just, I felt a little bad, but any child of ours, we'd just kind of drag them with us wherever we go, to a soccer practice or a soccer game, or and she'd happily go with us. So that was pretty cool. She just became one of us.
Because you really were her extended family. So was she like the only child they matched you with? Like, how were you committed to her monthly, or were you helping multiple kids monthly?
No, we were just with the extended family. We were assigned. They assigned us to her, and being an extended family. Excuse me. They, of course, they had to come. We had to go through the application process. We had to, have background checks, and DHS actually had to come to the house and do a tour to do that. And matter of fact, we had to put up an extra smoke alarm, which was like, they have some rule, but like 10 feet from their bedroom, they had to have a smoke alarm, which is no big deal. So we went through the process to be a extended family just for her. And so we really never, really, she was the only one we'd ever had been an extended family for.
That's neat, because you had mentioned that it's similar to respite, and for listeners that maybe don't know that part, so depending upon your state, there's a different process on how to get started. I know in Missouri, it's online, it's a couple hours, it's pretty simple. But to Ansel's point, I had to, before we could even have children in our home, I know my husband and I had to add like an extra fire extinguisher, like there had to be one per floor.
Right.
So we had things like that too. But I think one difference, it sounds like, between extended family and respite is, and for respite, you could be a family's kind of respite provider, but you can also be a respite, you're not exactly assigned just to one. It's not a one-to-one. So it's neat that you all were given that opportunity to really pour into her deeply. And so at one point you had shared that you got news that she was actually going to go back into the foster care system, and you and your wife felt like you both wanted to help. So you became foster parents in order to give her a place to stay until things were sorted out, which is incredible. Did you already go through the training to get licensed, or did you have to go through that entire process in order to help her?
That's a really great question, because when she really had gone through that process and had actually uh, and had she had gone out, and then she was trying to come back into the children's home, and they didn't have a place for her. Um, she was like, she was kind of stranded, and she was in a shelter. She was in a shelter up in Northwest Arkansas, and which they held her there for about 45 days.
Wow.
And so, and we would go back and forth and see her. Actually, this happened during the holidays.
Oh.
It made it even worse. But they will only hold her there for 45 days, and then they have to do something with her. So DHS was trying to work something out, and really she said, "I want to come live with you," and then we're like, "Oh, okay." So we really kind of had to huddle up at that point, and and hey, we wanted her. I mean, we wanted her to be here, and and since we were like this extended family, we had this relationship with her already. We became what is called fictive kin. And fictive kin could be like a coach or somebody, but fictive kin, you can allow someone to go back and live with you, take them in as a provisional. We became a provisional foster home, and being a provisional foster home, we had 6 months to get certified as a certified foster home. So we quickly had to go through all the training to be a foster home. Had to go through multiple home studies, go through FBI background checks and all that kind of jazz. So to be a foster home it's no small deal. And we'll talk about this later. That's why I tell people they should start small, do something small, because being a foster home or it's a big deal, and to get certified to do that. Now, all those and their weekends of like education, which I'm dying, in these, but what, it was good. It was very painful to have to sit through all those weekends of training. But hey, we also met others who were on the same journey, which they were just incredible stories of foster care and what they were doing, of people on the way to adopt. They were a couple couples that were on the way to adoption, grandparents that are having to raise their children, their grandchildren as their children. It was just, there were a room full of folks we got to know. It was just incredible to hear their stories.
Wow. Okay, so I feel like listeners are probably going to wonder kind of three things. Like when she was back in this shelter for 45 days, how old was she? Was she like teenager, like early teens? I know, years.
Yeah. Well, as funny as it all works out kind of funny. To me, in that, here she was, right as she came to us, she was 12. And so just shortly thereafter, she turned 13. And
wow.
So, I've just gotten through, all my teenage daughters are now 20s and in their careers. And so it was just funny that we get her at that time. And
right, you're like, I made it through, but here we go again.
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, here we go again. Well, we've seen this movie before. So so we were somewhat prepared for that.
So, and then the other thing they're probably wondering, so the way you described it, so it sounded like she was living with you, but you were in the process of officially getting licensed. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, you get some sort of designation as a provisional foster home when they're in a situation like that. So it's that really we were a foster home, but we were called provisional foster home um, and met all the the qualifications to do that. So, um, but but when we turned the corner and became the certified foster home, really nothing really changed. Um, again, we just had multiple visits and lots of paperwork and it's a very slow process, by the way. And I mean, it seems
Government
like
process.
it was very
Imagine that.
slow. Yeah, I know. So you just kind of you got to be prepared that it's going to be that way. But the people were nice. DHS was nice enough. They were doing their jobs and they were trying to make it all work. And it's just there are a lot of people involved.
Yeah, I'm glad you give that caution. So the final thing, because I want to touch back, you had said that sitting through the trainings was kind of painful. So I think listeners are kind of wondering, okay, Ansel, was it the content that was heavy? Was it just that it was like a lot of hours and you're like, it's the weekend? What was it that was kind of a heavy lift for you in that story?
Oh, I think it's more me than anybody. It's just time and having to sit still for hours and pay attention. That's probably it's probably my ADD, that's in there somewhere. Um, but we also had to be CPR certified and all that kind of jazz. But I actually, my wife and I are. She's a cheer coach. At the time, I was a high school soccer coach. I did that as a volunteer, and so I had to have all that designation anyway. Although none of that counted, so I had to do it all over again
Lovely.
for them. Yeah,
Oh,
but
man.
but it wasn't any big deal. It just took time.
Right. That's helpful to point out because I think that gives listeners a very clear reality of, okay, it's slow and it does take your time. And then there's the emotional investment too. And you had shared online in the post that initially your daughter didn't like her hair to be brushed and she didn't like to be hugged. And some I know that are considering adoption through foster care, they're concerned, like, what behaviors am I going to be able to encounter? Can I handle those behaviors? I'm curious what encouragement or insight you might have for people who might be kind of afraid of the behaviors of children in foster care that they might encounter.
Well, I guess I hadn't anticipated that. I told my kids when I said, look, this whoever this little girl is, and whoever we get assigned to, and we told them we're going to do this. I said these kids are broken. They've gone through this. They've gone through a process, and we just are here just to love on them. And that's one of the great truths that my wife keeps, reminds me that we're here to love them, not fix them, and that you just get to know your your kiddo, and as time and time you we talk about time. Time is really your friend when it comes to getting to know and for some of this, how can I say this? The things they've gone through, the distrust of adults or whatever disorder they may be going through from abuse or neglect, that a lot of that goes away. And I will also say that we've kept her in, smartly, I think, we kept her in counseling and along the way. And actually, we've actually gone in ourselves, when we hit something along the way that I felt like we need to address as a couple, we've gone in. So, it's, but it's what I can say is that I wouldn't that wouldn't scare me off, and that doesn't scare me off from providing a home and love and nurturing a child, and I think you've got enough partners in this with counselors and others that, and you know, we also, she's also brought into our family, which is, I have a large family with both my wife's and my parents are still alive. And so she's got grandparents and they love her and they love on her. And, you know, sometimes if I look up and miss her, she may be over at their house, you know, and
Aw.
so that's a whole nother, dynamic. I mean, she loves her siblings and they love her and so it's just it just takes all of us to do. It's not just me and my wife, it's really the whole family. And so so yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think you
um
point out such a great important factor too, that these partners, right? And the partners are therapists, and the partners might be psychiatrists, right? The partners might be other
yep.
people that have a great skill and went to school because they want to help kids in this space. And I love that you and your wife have even taken that step when needed. My husband and I've done similar things. As our kids, in and out, go to counseling, we have as well for our own needs. And I think that's wonderful because that really helps our families thrive, right? When we can just address things that we need and get the help that we need. I'm going to pivot just a little bit because you shared that after about a year when you were her foster parents, your daughter told you, I want you to adopt me. And your reaction really stuck out to me because you said it was both emotional and rational, excuse me. But what you said is you were both surprised and logical. You asked her to write a paper telling you why. So, like, you didn't really answer her, but you just said, explain more. Can you tell us a little bit about what she wrote?
It's it's interesting during this whole ginormous post that I never thought would get 10,000 views. That is one of the questions I get most of all, that people ask me, what was in that letter? What was in that
Interesting.
letter? Isn't that something? I really, and and it's just kind of interesting. But um, there were a couple reasons I asked her to do that. One is in my world, people, people say things, and unless somebody writes it down, it's not real to me. I want to see it in writing. The other thing is I felt like it would crystallize, as I said in this post. I felt like if she could put her thoughts in writing, you know, that would be something for her, because I think it was the process of I felt like, if you can reduce it to writing, you've thought through it and you've processed it, and really you can hear your heart. And it really and it's more, and as I've had numerous requests about this paper. It's not really a it's really a one-page love letter is what it is. It's
Mm.
not really it's not really an essay or I want to be clear about that. Everybody thinks, oh, how cruel. You made, actually somebody did jump on me. You made her write a paper. I'm
Oh
like,
man.
I'm like, I was like, well, I, here's the other practical side of that. If we have to, um, I didn't know how all this would go either when we started going down the path of adoption. So having a physical piece of paper with her thoughts on it is powerful, and which we never have pulled out. Matter of fact, we've never pulled out or even referenced it, except for me in this post, and everybody asked me about it.
Well,
um,
it's a different way to do this, right? And just from the folks that have come on my podcast that have adopted teenagers, to me, it's a very fair and very loving way to say, okay, I hear you. Tell me more, right? And I think sometimes, at least from my perspective, when I write or I journal, like you said, our thoughts are so much more clear than when we talk, right? That we can really think through the sequence and what we're saying. And so it sounds like that was a very affirming letter. It didn't sound like you guys were on the fence. You more just were like, I want to know why this is like, why do you think we're the family for you?
Yeah, you know, and here was this was my exact question to her. My question to her was, why in the world would you want to be a part of this crazy family of ours? I mean, we're all nuts, you know. And that's the way I put it to her. I said, why? I mean, and just tell me. And and bottom line, to kind of net it all out without disclosing her 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 privacy is that, you know, and I was looking at it the other day, and I pulled out a quote in there, but she just said, I know you will take care of me.
I love that.
And and that's a pretty powerful thing. Yeah. Um, um, and I think and prayerfully, hopefully, we have.
I hear so much in that statement of like, I know that take care of me is you'll provide for my needs, but it's also, I know that I'm safe. I know that I'm part of something that's not going to go away, right? That you'll be there forever. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, you bet, you bet. You know, I really, you know, as we transitioned her around from moving out to going and getting her from this 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 shelter, one of the things that struck me was everything that her whole world is in a trash bag. You know, that there she had multiple trash. Matter of fact, she had more stuff, but it was all in trash bags. And it's just, you know, and I saw somebody that had written something about these trash bags, and and you know, she can throw away all the trash bags. She didn't need trash bags anymore. That, you know, she didn't have to be jerked up and moved somewhere else. So so she's home.
I love that, with the family forever, which is so amazing. So, okay, that is so heartfelt. I'm like trying to hold back tears on the other side of the line here, but it's so good. So, okay, we have a glimpse of your family's foster care story. I know there's so many more pieces to that journey, but you had shared with me when we talked offline that on Fridays you tend to do like a personal post on LinkedIn. And for those that may not be on LinkedIn, LinkedIn tends to be a more professional, like career-driven site. So a lot of people post about growth as a leader and things like that. But and so you share that on Fridays you try to share something personal. And so I'm curious, how did you think about taking this entire journey your family went through and teasing it out into a really short, it wasn't, I mean, I guess it was like 10 sentences or less. I didn't count, but it wasn't long to read. It wasn't paragraphs. How did you think through that, as people think, okay, I've gone through this journey myself. I could see how sharing that on social media or sharing it publicly anywhere could really be an encouragement to others, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that or what to say, or is it too much? What kind of encouragement would you share in your own experience?
When I wrote this, I wrote it and then I deleted a lot. And really, the way I wrote it was really, and I've been coached to write, especially on LinkedIn, with this method. But it was interesting because as I was sharing, I've shared with others, it was kind of like it wrote itself. You know, like any great song. I'm a huge band guy. I love music and the Beatles and Chicago and you know other groups that all the good songs, you know, basically write themselves. And this thing just wrote itself. And I kept every time I would write too much. I think that's where people get in trouble. They write too much, and so I kept deleting. And the more I wrote, the more I deleted to where I got it to where it just were really I was hitting the high points of the of my story, and because people will take time and read the high points, and again, never thought I thought I'd never get 10,000 views of this thing. And when it started really taking off, I just like, wow, I kept telling my wife, you're not going to believe I'm at 500,000. I'm actually at 1 million. And it just kept going. And but what was so beautiful about this whole thing were the comments of the people that either had been adopted and were adults and just thanked me, for saying that, and or the people that had adopted and they were just so thankful, and the people that private messaged me. It was just one of the most encouraging things I've ever experienced my whole life. It I mean, with 8 million views, there were just scads. I mean, there are 4,000 comments on this thing, and I try to answer all those. That's not even counting the direct messages and emails I got. So it was so powerful.
It is, and it's to me, it's incredible on so many levels, because I'm a big proponent, and I feel the same way about mental illness as I do about talking about our families' foster care adoption stories, is that just because we don't hear about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And what you're doing is reminding people about this thing that happens on the regular basis. These kids that are there, that are waiting, that have potential, that want that family. And I think it's so encouraging. And one of the things that I think is interesting about how you're learning through that is, you'd mentioned, again offline, that you're encouraging people to start small. And you kind of said earlier too, that taking the big leap to adoption can feel like a big leap. So as we close, Ansel, I wonder, I know you have a new book coming out that in mid-August that kind of talks a bit about this start small. Can you give us a little bit of kind of bite size of how then can we start in a way that feels manageable and not overwhelming?
Yes. Matter of fact, I sat down with one of my coaches, actually my writing coach, when all this was going on. I said, "Look, this has happened. What do I do?" And he said, "Hey, just offer some free coaching. 30-minute coaching session." I started with 10. It actually expanded up to like 30.
Awesome.
Of just telling people how to start small, and that's kind of really my mantra, is that we don't all have to go out and try to be foster parents right out of the chute. But there are things that I've done along the way that you could start small and do something, and whether it you provide, you become an extended family, or go even back up more than that. Maybe you just sponsor a child at a children's home and go have lunch with them, and or get approved and take them out to eat for pizza or shopping, or whatever. There are small things you can do without adopting and or fostering. And that's where I spent the majority of my life until it was apparent that we foster and adopt. And I put this down. It was just funny how it all kind of played out. I've been working on this book for a year, and I actually started writing a piece of the book about serving others, to have impact. And so this hit, and then I've put start small, and really about serving others in this book, which is set to come out in mid-August, and it's called Common Grounds 2. Actually, it's my second. I've written the first Common Grounds, which had to do with actually working out of a coffee shop. You can see it on Amazon, but Common Grounds 2 will be coming out in the middle of August, and it will have the part of it will be talking about this very thing. Actually, I tell my story in there on how I really got started, from a chance meeting to drive a bus to a children's home in college. So there are so many things you can do to start small, and that you just don't, if you just take that first step and do it. And that's really kind of been one of the reasons I wrote the thing, was to challenge people to do something good and to help a child. And whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be adoption, although I'm all for it, and I think it's fantastic. but there's small things you can do just to get started.
I love that, because you're right. Like getting experience with seeing these kids, helping them, donating something. There's these things we can do because we care, that they might be less scary, right? And they might help us just kind of even explore. Is that something? Should I do something a little bit bigger next time? Or maybe not. Maybe this is kind of the thing. And that's just that's great advice, Ansel. And I'm so grateful for your openness. And I, as an adoptive parent as well, I really recognize and respect how you talk about your story while also honoring your daughter and her story, because it is her story, and there's things that are hers to share. And I really respect that. So in case listeners are like, Marcy, you didn't cry, I'm like, well, that's why, because I do the same with my kids. There are parts of their story that are not mine. They're for them to share if and when they want to. So, and so this has been really encouraging. I feel like you've given people a lot to think about. And I think you've encouraged us all. And so thank you so much for your willingness to step out online and to share, and your willingness to come on as a guest and to share a little bit deeper about your LinkedIn post.
It's exciting to be able to share this in hopes that someone might, take, get an idea that, hey, maybe I can do that. And and truly, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and or you can find me at info@ansellee.com, which will go directly to me. So, at any rate, if I could help in any way, please reach out.
I love that. Thanks again, Ansel.
Oh, you bet, Marcy. Thank you.
As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 115,000 adoptable children in the United States. By leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, and talking about this podcast, you can help children and sibling groups find their forever family. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling group through the foster care system, please visit my website, forgottenadoptionoption.com. There you will find how you can get started and even order a copy of my book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which will guide you through the entire process. You can also find my book for children of all ages, Are You a Forever Family? My books are available in paperback, audio, and ebook formats, and they might even be available at your local library. I welcome you to reach out to me with questions, comments, and your own adoption story. I would love to hear from you if you're signing up for licensing classes, or to hear where you are in the foster care adoption process. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search for Marcy Bursack. I really appreciate you tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves a family.